Love is a trap laid for us by the species. These are the words of Arthur Schopenhauer, a philosopher often labeled a pessimist, yet one who dared to peel back the layers of conventional understanding to reveal a raw, unsettling truth about human existence. Welcome to The Will to Wisdom. Today, we embark on a journey into one of Schopenhauer's most provocative and potentially uncomfortable ideas, his view of marriage, and indeed romantic love itself, not as a union primarily for individual happiness, but as a profound, often deceptive contract entered into between you, your partner, and the very continuation of the human species. We tend to think of love as a personal, deeply emotional connection, and marriage as a commitment born of affection and mutual goals. But what if this deeply held belief is, as Schopenhauer suggests, merely a grand illusion? What if the powerful urge that draws us together is not, at its core, about our individual fulfillment, but instead serves a far older, blinder, and more relentless master, the will of the species? In this video, we will dive deep into Schopenhauer's philosophical architecture, his stark division of the world into will and representation, to understand the foundation of this radical claim. We will explore why, in his view, our most intense desires are often tools wielded by nature itself. Learn how the species genius meticulously selects our partners through the veil of infatuation. Examine concrete, sometimes tragic, examples from life and literature that illustrate his point. And finally, draw out the uncomfortable lessons and conclusions this perspective offers for our understanding of love, marriage, and the human condition. The world as will and representation. To grasp Schopenhauer's argument about marriage, we must first understand his fundamental view of reality, laid out in his chief work, The World as Will and Representation. He proposes that the world has two fundamental aspects. On one side, it is representation the world, as it appears to us, as we perceive it through our senses and organize it through inherent mental structures like space, time, and causality. It's the world of objects, phenomena, and distinct individuals separated by space and time, what Schopenhauer calls the principium individuationis. This is the world of appearances, the surface level of reality. But beneath this world of appearance lies the thing in itself, the inner essence of reality, which Schopenhauer identifies as the will. This will is not conscious, not rational, and has no ultimate purpose or goal. It is a blind, incessant, striving force, a relentless urge that objectifies itself or manifests in all phenomena, from the fundamental forces of nature to the complex actions of human beings. Every natural force, every growth, every desire, every action, these are all manifestations of this underlying will. Human beings, like all other creatures, are primarily manifestations of this will. Our rationality and consciousness, our intellect, are merely secondary tools developed to serve the will's primary ends. We are not fundamentally different from animals in our deepest nature. We share the same striving essence. And because the will is a force of endless striving, human existence, as its manifestation, is inevitably characterized by suffering. Desire is a lack, a pain. Its satisfaction is temporary, immediately replaced by new desires, or worse, by boredom. All life is suffering. This philosophical backdrop sets the stage for Schopenhauer's radical interpretation of love and marriage. If the will is the fundamental reality, and it is a blind, striving force that manifests in individuals, then what is the most powerful, most obvious manifestation of this will in sentient beings? It is the will to live, not just the will for the individual to survive, but the will for life itself to continue, to propagate, to objectify itself endlessly in new forms. And the most concentrated expression, the very focal point of this will to live, is the sexual instinct. Schopenhauer even refers to the genitals as the focal point of the will. The species game, instinct, love, and illusion. This instinct is not about individual pleasure in any ultimate sense. It is about the species ensuring its continued existence through an infinite series of generations. Schopenhauer argues that the vehemence of this instinct, its ability to override reason and self-preservation, demonstrates that the species has a prior and greater claim on us than our individual selves. We, as individuals, are merely temporary manifestations, instruments, or decoys used by the species to achieve its own blind, purposeless goal of continued existence. But here's the ingenious and, according to Schopenhauer, deceptive part. The species cannot rely on our often limited intellect or our inherent egoism to ensure we pursue its goal, perpetuation, with the necessary zeal, especially when it requires sacrifice. Therefore, nature employs a clever stratagem. It creates an illusion. This illusion, in humans, takes the form of romantic love and the passionate infatuation that draws us to a specific individual. We believe we are pursuing our own happiness, our own infinite pleasure, by uniting with this person. The object of our desire appears as the key to ultimate fulfillment, the source of extraordinary joy. But this perception is a trick. It's the species' will speaking through us, directing our energy toward the biological goal under the guise of personal bliss. As Schopenhauer starkly notes, this illusion quickly fades after the act has been accomplished. The intense passion often dissipates, leaving the individuals to realize they haven't gained the infinite happiness they expected. They were, in a sense, duped by the will of the species. The species architect. Partner selection. This brings us to a crucial aspect of Schopenhauer's theory. If love is primarily about serving the species, then the selection of a partner is not arbitrary. It's a complex, instinctual process guided by the species' interest in producing the best possible offspring. Schopenhauer identifies various factors that influence this unconscious selection, categorizing them into absolute and relative considerations. Absolute considerations aim to preserve the pure type of the human species, ensuring basic health, strength, and typical form in the next generation. This is why youth is paramount. It signals peak fertility and vigor. Health is also a key factor. Chronic diseases or deformities are instinctively repulsive, as they may be passed on. The basic structure of the body, especially the skeleton, is crucial. Hence, the attractiveness of a well-proportioned figure. And, in a peculiar detail, Schopenhauer notes the value placed on small feet, which he links to the uniquely human upright gait. Beauty, in this context, isn't merely subjective taste. It's the perceived purity and perfection of the species type in an individual. Relative considerations, on the other hand, are about correcting or compensating for imperfections and deviations in the parents to produce a more balanced offspring. This explains attractions between opposites. Tall individuals might be drawn to shorter ones, blondes to brunettes, or those with specific temperamental or intellectual deficits might instinctively seek partners who balance those traits, all in service of producing a more optimal next generation. Schopenhauer even suggests that intellectual qualities inherited from the mother play a role. Though physical beauty often exerts a stronger influence due to its link to more fundamental aspects of the species type. The strength of infatuation, the sense of having found the one, corresponds directly to how well two individuals complement each other in this complex web of absolute and relative considerations, all aiming to produce a specific child desired by the will of the species. It is the species genius, says Schopenhauer, meticulously examining and meditating on the potential offspring through the seemingly irrational force of attraction. Marriage. A contract with nature. Examples and consequences. This profound, instinctual drive, veiled by the illusion of personal happiness, is what often leads to marriage. Schopenhauer draws a sharp contrast between marriage for love and marriage for convenience. Marriage for love, driven by the powerful, species-fueled instinct, prioritizes the goal of procreation and the specific configuration of the next generation. However, because the selection process is guided by the species' biological agenda, not the individual's emotional or intellectual compatibility, marriages based solely on passion are, according to Schopenhauer, often unhappy. The individuals whose personal interests were secondary to the species' goal find themselves mismatched once the biological drive fades. As the Spanish proverb goes, "Quien se casa por amores, ha de vivir con dolores." He who marries for love must live with sorrow. Petrarch also warned against women, calling them a perpetual workshop of strife and labor. Another Italian proverb captures this bluntly. Chi si sposa si toglie I fastidi dai calzoni I se li met in testa. He who marries takes trouble from his trousers and puts it on his head. Gracian viewed a married man, especially one with children, as little more than a pack animal. Schopenhauer points to numerous examples from life and literature to support his argument about the relentless power of this species' instinct and its often tragic consequences for individuals. The tragedies of love. The timeless appeal of tragic love stories like Romeo and Juliet, Tancred, Don Carlos, Wallenstein, or The Bride of Messina isn't just about dramatic flair. Schopenhauer sees them as illustrating how the species' goals embodied in the lover's passion can be thwarted, leading to the destruction of the individuals who serve as its instruments. Similarly, historical examples of suicides and double suicides, driven by denied passion, demonstrate the immense, destructive force of the species' will when its primary drive is irrevocably blocked. An individual consumed by this concentrated urge can be precipitated into the vortex of the will of the species, viewing life as meaningless if this specific species' mandated union becomes impossible. Crimes and sacrifices. The irrationality and violence sometimes associated with love, such as killing out of jealousy or sacrificing one's fortune, honor, or even life for the beloved further, underline that the drive isn't rational or purely individualistic. It's an instinct that overrides self-preservation and morality. Schopenhauer cites the case of a father who committed suicide so that his son would be exempt from military service as the eldest child of a widow. This extreme act, though seemingly personal, is interpreted by Schopenhauer as the will of the species, ensuring the continuation of the bloodline even at the cost of the individual. The species' divine right. Schopenhauer argues that the instinctual drive for the species' benefit feels like a higher authority, one that overrides human laws and morals. He observes that even otherwise honest people may commit adultery under the grip of passionate love. It's as if they feel a superior justification, believing they are acting in the interest of the species. Chamfort captured the sentiment well. When a man and a woman have a violent passion for each other, it always seems to me that the two lovers belong to one another by nature, that they belong by divine right, despite human laws and conventions. Schopenhauer even references Christ's surprising leniency toward the adulteress in the Gospel, interpreting it as an acknowledgement of this powerful, overriding force. From this perspective, Boccaccio's Decameron becomes a depiction of the species' genius, mocking the rights and interests of individuals. Animal parallels. The raw, undeniable power of the species' instinct is perhaps most evident in animals, where it's less obscured by intellect. Schopenhauer offers vivid examples. A trout caught by hand during mating season, an ibex forgetting danger, a donkey following a female into a ravine. He also describes the hecatomb of the drones, where male bees are sacrificed by worker bees after mating season, demonstrating nature's indifference to the individual once it has served the reproductive purpose. These behaviors, overriding even survival instincts, exemplify the dominance of the species' will. The shame of procreation. The deep-seated shame associated with the sexual acthidon and taboo across culture rhesus. For Schopenhauer, not about sinning against a god. Rather, it reflects an unconscious recognition of life's true nature, a cycle of suffering, a debt incurred. Pliny's observation is apt. Homini tantum primi coitus poenitentia. Augurium silicet vitae. A poenitenda origine. Only man repents the first coitus, a prophecy of life from a regrettable origin. For Schopenhauer, procreation is not joyous creation, but the perpetuation of suffering, a burden passed from parents to children. Shame arises from this obscure acknowledgement of life's inherent misery. The case of pederasty. In a controversial section, Schopenhauer even applies his theory to pederasty not as mere vice, but as a deviation of the sexual instinct. He argues that when individuals are biologically unfit to produce healthy offspring due to age, immaturity, or constitutional weakness, the species' genius may redirect the sexual instinct away from procreation. This deviation is seen as a natural strategy to prevent the birth of weak or imperfect individuals who could degrade the species. Though he finds the practice personally repugnant, Schopenhauer analyzes it functionally as part of the species' broader agenda, even if it appears counterintuitive. He notes its recurrence throughout history and cultures, suggesting a deeper, natural, albeit negative or prophylactic origin. Schopenhauer's own experiences. It's worth noting that Schopenhauer was not untouched by the forces he analyzed. Biographers describe his passionate relationships, including encounters in Italy. He spoke of romances in Rome and Florence with great melancholy, and mentioned an insurmountable obstacle preventing him from marrying a noble Florentine. He was even pursued by an Italian woman, Teresa Fuga, who dramatically misspelled his name. In Berlin, he had a long-term relationship with Caroline Richter, forgiving her grammatical errors and infidelity, and even leaving her money in his will. Late in life, he was infatuated with the young sculptor Elisabeth Ney. These personal experiences reveal that his philosophical insights were not abstract musings, but deeply informed by the passions he described manifestations of the will of the species in his own life. Part 5. Beyond the Contract. Wisdom and Renunciation. If love and marriage, powerful as they are, fundamentally driven by the species' blind will and often lead to suffering for the individual, what is the alternative? Schopenhauer's philosophy doesn't just diagnose the problem. It offers a path, albeit a difficult one. This path involves the recognition of the world as will, seeing through the illusions, and potentially arriving at what he calls the denial of the will to life. This isn't necessarily an argument for suicide, which Schopenhauer sees as merely denying the individual manifestation of the will, not the will itself. Instead, it is a conscious turning away from the endless striving and desires of the willless state of resignation and tranquility. This is achieved through a profound knowledge or insight, erkenntnis, seeing the world as it truly is, driven by the will, steeped in suffering, and understanding that true liberation comes from disengaging from this cycle. The will to wisdom. This is where our channel name, The Will to Wisdom, deeply resonates with Schopenhauer's ideas. It's not just about possessing knowledge or facts, wissen, but cultivating the drive, the will toward genuine insight. It's about looking beyond the surface, beyond comfortable illusions, to understand the fundamental nature of reality even when that truth is uncomfortable. Understanding that love and marriage are, from a metaphysical perspective, largely driven by the species' blind will is not meant to be cynical. Instead, it is the first step toward seeing reality, clear stripping away the veil of illusion. In Schopenhauer's view, true wisdom lies in recognizing this relentless striving, this inherent suffering, and finding a way to quiet the will within ourselves. This might involve asceticism, compassion for fellow sufferers, or aesthetic contemplation, which offers a temporary escape from the will's demands. But the fundamental challenge remains: to live in the world, participate in its drama, while inwardly recognizing its nature and detaching from its relentless, species-driven demands. Part 6. Lessons and Conclusions. Schopenhauer's perspective on marriage and love offers several powerful, albeit challenging lessons. 1. Love is a species illusion. The intense feeling we call romantic love is a powerful, instinctual drive designed by nature to ensure the propagation and qualitative preservation of the species. Its primary purpose is not our individual, enduring happiness. 2. The species trumps the individual. The will of the species has a prior and greater claim on us than our individual desires or welfare. This explains why the pursuit of love often involves significant sacrifice, overrides reason, and can lead to personal detriment or tragedy. 3. Partner selection is instinctual. Our choices in love are not purely rational, or based on conscious preference. They are guided by a deep, unconscious instinct that selects partners based on criteria optimizing the genetic makeup of future offspring. 4. Marriage for love can be unhappy. Because love marriages are driven by the species' biological agenda, they often unite individuals who are incompatible in character or temperament, leading to potential unhappiness once the initial illusion fades. Marriage for convenience, while less romantic, might prioritize present compatibility, albeit without the force of instinct. 5. Life's origin is regrettable. The shame associated with the act of procreation reflects an unconscious recognition of life's inherent nature, a cycle of striving and suffering, a debt passed down through generations. 6. Wisdom as liberation. True liberation from the will's cycle of suffering comes not from seeking individual happiness within the system, but from gaining insight into the nature of the will itself and potentially achieving a denial or turning away from its relentless drive. Schopenhauer's view offers a sobering, perhaps even bleak perspective on one of life's most cherished experiences. It challenges us to look beyond the romantic ideal and see the powerful, non-personal forces at play in our most intimate relationships. But in this uncomfortable truth lies a form of liberation, the ability to see the game being played, to recognize the will's influence, and perhaps, armed with this wisdom, navigate the complexities of love, marriage, and existence with clearer eyes. What do you think? What are your thoughts on Schopenhauer's view of marriage as a contract for the species? Do you find it cynical, or does it resonate with your observations of life? Let us know in the comments below. If you found this exploration valuable, please like the video and share it with others who seek deeper insights. Don't forget to subscribe to The Will to Wisdom for more journeys into philosophy and the challenging truths of existence. Thank you for watching. Until next time, cultivate your will to wisdom.